Brothers, please move forward. We have so many people coming in. We don't want to be disturbed. Please come all the way up front if you don't mind. Thank you.
Come to this place here. Come as close. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب اللهم صل على محمد. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. The third with your loudest voices in honor of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. اللهم صل على محمد. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. The discussion concerning earthquakes and other natural occurrences is a fundamental discussion in Islamic thought, and a discussion of the utmost importance, a discussion which affects each and every one of our lives. Indeed, the discussion is a contemporary discussion in the idea that when we witness the many earthquakes that occur around us in the world, many people begin to question what is the basis and the reasoning and the philosophy behind these earthquakes, or indeed behind any of the natural occurrences that may occur. For example, the eruption of a volcano, for example, thunder or lightning striking a certain area, or even striking the life of a human being. And many have come forward and sought explanations for these different occurrences. As an example, recently, we found that there was a major earthquake which took place in China. And indeed, earthquakes, as we know, cause a major disruption to the life of the human being. And the idea that it's not only the human being who dies that is affected. Their family is affected. The neighbors are affected. Indeed, the rest of the development of their life is affected. And because of this, people ask the question, why do these things happen? As in, can the human being not live a life without these disruptions? Hasn't the human being already got many disruptions to deal with within their life? And that's why you find that people ask the question, what is the basis for earthquakes and other occurrences? The answer that is normally given, and without a shadow of doubt, which forms the majority of the philosophy behind earthquakes, is a scientific answer. As in, for anyone to suggest otherwise, there may be a reason otherwise, but the majority reason which is given is scientific, as in the motion of tectonic plates which takes place, causes an earthquake, in the idea that the rocks that separate these plates, when there is a movement between them, then you find that an earthquake occurs. This scientific explanation is a plausible explanation, without a shadow of doubt. But if somebody comes to ask you what is the explanation for why an earthquake occurs, the first answer that has to be given is a scientific answer. Because those who try and give, for example, a theological answer only are falling clearly into a trap. Which trap? the trap that seeks to indicate that science has no place within religion. On the contrary, we within the religion of Islam states that science has a major place within religion, that there is no denying science's position within religion. Was it not Einstein who said that religion without science is lame and science without religion is blind? Meaning that both go hand in hand with each other. Religion needs science to come forward with explanations, and likewise science requires religion to chisel a particular direction and a consciousness within the human being. So on the first level, when somebody asks us the question, why do these earthquakes occur according to the religion of Islam, we automatically give a scientific explanation that this motion of tectonic plates is an answer which is plausible. And then we may give what is known as a theological explanation, that sometimes and very rarely, but that there may be a reasoning that the hands of the human being have caused that particular earthquake to occur. And that's why recently this particular suggestion was given by Hujjat al-Islam Sadiqi in Iran, when he came forward and he said within his statement, he came forward and he said that when there is a level of immorality within the actions of certain women, and there is promiscuity, then you find that these earthquakes may occur. Because of this, you had an uproar which was caused, which led to an act by the name of boobquake. What was that act? That was an act begun by someone called Jennifer McCreight. Jennifer McCreight came forward as an atheist and said, if this man who claims to be a cleric says that women exposing themselves and wearing immoral clothes leads eventually towards an earthquake, then let us all come out and reveal the finer parts of our body and see whether an earthquake occurs. Of course, this type of dialogue is a very immature type of dialogue. But I'm not surprised by atheist morality with its immaturity. As an atheist morality is nothing more than a set of jargon which is separated or which is chiseled with long words. What do I mean? I mean, when an atheist comes to teach you about morality, it's absolutely absurd. In which way? Atheist morality has no barometer whatsoever. All it really leads to is a destruction of your society. If an atheist comes and tells you something's good, and you reply to him that it's bad, what can he say to you? You're wrong? He can't tell me I'm wrong. Because when an atheist tells you something's good and you say something's bad, there is no barometer to judge that I'm wrong or that they're wrong. In an atheist moral world, whichever way you want to live your life, you can. Nobody can tell you you're wrong. If now I come and say to an atheist that I believe in something, they can't tell me I'm wrong, because their moral world doesn't have a barometer. Therefore, when an atheist comes to make fun of a cleric because of the moral statement, the atheist has nothing to stand on, because they have no barometer in their morality anyway. So what do you find? You find that they came forward and said that this cleric in Iran is someone who says because of women revealing parts of their body, that's why earthquakes occur. We come forward and reply by saying from the outset of this discussion that science is the first reason why earthquakes occur. And the second reason may be from the hands of man. And that we will explain within the crux of the discussion. And that's why you find that then when this boobquake occurred, there was a reply to it with a movement called brainquake. Brainquake were a set of Iranian students who came forward and said that, look, if you have a problem with the clerical establishment in the country, don't lower the status of woman with a movement like boobquake. If you want to show Iranian women are intellectual, are people of degrees, people of knowledge, then come out and simply show what their women have achieved. Therefore, highlighting to that atheist who came out with that movement that when you want to attack a particular concept, don't lower yourself in the attack. If you want to have a constructive intellectual discussion, we are open for it. But don't lower yourself with a movement like that movement. Yet the point is still important. That according to the religion of Islam, what is the philosophy behind these earthquakes? Is it God who is oppressive towards his creation? Is it science alone? Or is it that mankind sometimes, because of their actions, may face a situation where God has to remind them to wake up again? I'd like to discuss this in a number of stages. Number one, what is the power of Surah Al-Zilzal, which I recited at the beginning of my lecture? Number two, what is the difference between a moral evil and a natural evil? And is it that God oppresses man, or is it that man oppresses themselves? Number three, and of the utmost importance, who in the Quran is mentioned as having been involved in an earthquake? And why were their people punished? Number four, importantly to understand, what earthquake should man always think about more than the earthquake of this world? And number five, when did the Ahlul Bayt mention that there would be occasions when the earth was ready to swallow its inhabitants? Let's examine this and seek to examine the topic in depth. Surah Al-Zilzal, as we know within the Holy Quran, is the surah which I recited at the beginning of the lecture. And literally it's translated as the shaking earth, or the occurrence of the shaking. You find that this surah is of course one of the shortest surahs within the Holy Quran, as in it's seen as being where it's in the last chapter of the Holy Quran, Juz' Ammar, and seen as only being a few verses. Yet these verses are of the utmost importance, to the extent that you find the first question that arises, is it Meccan or is it Medinian? Why? Normally a Meccan surah speaks about the Usul al-Din, and a Medinian surah speaks about the Furu' al-Din. If you want to know if a surah is from Mecca, then it will either discuss Tawheed, or it will discuss Nubuwwah, or it will discuss Qiyamah. It will discuss monotheism, or prophethood, or the Day of Judgment. Why? Because in Mecca, Rasulullah is trying to establish these principles. If a surah discusses Salah and Sawm and Hajj and Zakat, then it's Medina. Why? Because you've already established Islam. Now you're teaching the Muslims how to act. This surah, some commentators say it's Meccan because it's all about Qiyamah. Whereas others say no, it's Medina because of the fact that when Abu Sayid al-Khudri asked Rasulullah about the verse, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ, Abu Sayid had not become a Muslim until in Medina. Therefore the indication it may be Medinian. Rasulullah used to state, whoever recites Surah Al-Zilzal, whoever recites it, it's as if they've recited Surah Al-Baqarah. That's how powerful the surah is. Surah Al-Baqarah is over 200 verses. There are some of us in our life, we've just about finished a surah which is 30 verses. Surah Al-Baqarah is over 200 verses. This Surah Al-Zilzal is not more than 7-8 verses. Yet you find Rasulullah saying, its power is like Surah Al-Baqarah. And then he continues by saying, whoever recites Surah Al-Zilzal, it's as if they completed 1/4 of the Holy Quran. But our sixth Imam has a beautiful saying about this surah. He says, never be tired of reciting Surah Al-Zilzal, because of the fact that the one who recites Surah Al-Zilzal will not be affected by the occurrence of an earthquake in their life, nor will they be affected by the strike of lightning, nor will any of the worldly pests hurt them. Notice that Imam al-Sadiq within his hadith, it's as if he's mentioning that there are natural occurrences which happen in this world. An earthquake may happen, lightning may strike you, a worldly pest may just touch you and kill you. Recite Surah Al-Zilzal and do not be tired of it. And you know what this indicates? This indicates that the Quran isn't just a set of Arabic words. That the Quran has a spiritual feature to its words as well as a physical feature. How many times people come up to me and ask me, Sayid Ammar, is there a particular dua we can recite for this? I reply to them, when you have a dua like the Quran, which dua do you need to recite? The Quran, each surah has a benefit for you, in one way or the other. Surah Al-Zilzal has a benefit in which way? In the way that it stops these natural occurrences from affecting you. And that's why when you look at these natural occurrences, somebody comes forward and states, I don't mind a moral evil, but I can't understand a natural evil. Because we know in philosophy, there are two types of evils. A moral evil and a natural evil. A moral evil is when there is an intervention of an agent. Meaning what? Meaning, for example, stealing is a moral evil. Rape is a moral evil. Killing is a moral evil. Why? There is an intervention of an agent who performs the act. With a moral evil, you find many human beings saying, we don't mind a moral evil. We can understand the philosophy of a moral evil. A human being sometimes he is rash in his decision making, he performs an act which is against their spiritual norm. But they say, we don't understand the natural evil. You say to them, what do you mean? They say, we don't understand earthquakes, we don't understand lightning, we don't understand volcanoes erupting and disrupting all our flights. So they come forward and what do they state? They state that we don't understand the basis of natural evils. The point that is raised in this regard is what? Is that the first issue which is raised in this regard, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first of the points which is raised in this regard is someone comes forward and states that when you see an earthquake or lightning occur or a volcano, it's because God is oppressive towards the human being. That's the first opinion. Say to them, what do you mean? They say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a method of oppressing the human, allows an earthquake to occur or allows, for example, a volcano to erupt and ruin the life of a human being. Philosophically, we reply by saying, when you say God is oppressive, why would an agent act oppressively? Philosophically, the question arises. When you act oppressively because of three reasons. Either you want something, but you can't get it. Or number two, you are compelled to perform an act. Or number three, you have a lack of knowledge on a certain area and you end up oppressing someone. Ask yourself in your own life, have you ever performed an act of oppression towards anyone? I don't think there's anyone within this hall who may have not performed an act of oppression against another human. There are three reasons you've performed an act of oppression against another human being. The first reason is because of a lack of knowledge on that particular act. You lacked a certain area of knowledge, you ended up oppressing someone. The second reason is what? The second reason is no, someone compelled you to perform an act of oppression. The third reason is what? You wanted something, but you couldn't get it except that you had to oppress someone. When you oppress someone, then you got what you wanted. Return the question back to God. If the accusation is that God oppresses a human being through natural evils, is God ever in need of something which he can't get? When Allah wants something, doesn't he say, verily be and it will be? Therefore, God is not in need of something he can't get. Number two, can anyone compel God to perform an act? Nobody can compel God to perform an act. Number three, does God have a certain lack of knowledge where he ends up oppressing someone because of that lack of knowledge? On the contrary, God is the all-knowledgeable. Therefore, the first argument that the reason earthquakes occur is because of God's oppressing, we remove it philosophically by saying that the three axes of oppression do not apply to God. The second opinion is that earthquakes occur, why? Because of fallen angels, and they want to take their revenge back on God. So then what do you mean? You find someone like Augustine within Christian theology says that there were certain angels who were in God's presence in the heavens. But some of them were very arrogant. Because of this arrogance, they fell from grace. But they didn't fall all the way. No, they still have a role in the life of the human being until the day man is raised. These fallen angels become fallen demons. And because of their demonic traits, they want to cause havoc for the human being. So what do? They cause earthquakes to occur. We reply, with all due respect to Christian theology, we don't agree with this notion. And the idea that just because an angel falls or a jinn falls does not mean that an angel will come back and cause havoc for the human being. Yes, that jinn which causes havoc, yuwaswisu fi sudur an-nas, we know that that jinn will whisper forever. But to say that that jinn is the cause of an earthquake, we reject that second argument. A third argument is, you need evil for there to be good. Because good can't exist without evil, like up can't exist without down. Say, what do you mean? Say, well, if there is evil in the world, then it balances good. Because good, if there isn't evil, doesn't have any respect whatsoever. So when there is evil within the world, then good earns its respect. We reply, on the contrary, mankind wants to build a world which is full of good and no evil. I don't think you'll find any human except Nietzsche who would love a world which is full of evil. If you went to a human being today and you said to him, oh human, Do you want a world which is full of evil? He'll reply to you, listen, I just want a world where everyone respects each other. I want to live my life and let everyone live their life. I don't want a world full of evil. For someone to say that an evil occurrence occurs because good needs evil, that's rejected. The fourth opinion may be an interesting one. What is it? That when there is evil in the world, it's because it allows for higher goods to emerge. Meaning what? Meaning that when a natural occurrence occurs in this world, a higher good may emerge from that natural occurrence. What do we mean? We mean that sometimes when an earthquake occurs, you find the human being may go back to performing certain good acts which they had neglected. For example, when I see an earthquake occur, I see around me that people have lost their homes, people have lost their families, people have lost their clothing. It may bring back the attribute of charity within me again. I had become a stingy human being. Not only did I become stingy, I started telling others to become stingy as well. When I see an act like an earthquake, it may suddenly change within me where what do? I suddenly start thinking to myself, you know what? I've neglected giving sadaqah for the last few years. This act has now come into me where I think, hold on, maybe I should start giving more charity back towards an Islamic cause. Notice how some say that the philosophy behind an earthquake is that a higher order good may emerge from the human being. Ask yourself, how many of us were generous in our younger days? Then we got older and we became so much stingier with the way we'd give money away. Whenever there's a cause within the mosque, whenever there's a cause within the Islamic world, we think 1,000 times before giving money away. And truly the hadith applies that when a person wants to give charity away, shaitan comes and places the shackles on them. You find therefore that a higher order good, a second higher order good which may emerge from an earthquake is what? Is visiting family members who you had neglected visiting. Why? Because when I see in an earthquake someone's lost family and someone's lost lives, I begin to appreciate the family and the lives who are around me. You know when you take it for granted that you have brothers living in the same city as you? You know when you take it for granted that your father sits in front of you in your house? Sometimes the sight of a natural occurrence where somebody loses family makes you reflect that maybe my salat al-rahim needs to get stronger. Maybe I'm not appreciating the family relations that I have. Therefore the fourth opinion was what? That a higher order good may come about. But then there was a fifth opinion which was what? The fifth opinion is that sometimes when an earthquake occurs within a land or another natural occurrence, it's because people aren't enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Notice, in our examination we said, the prime reason is scientific. That there's no doubt. But the secondary reason may be a higher order good. And the third reason is this one, that you may find a town where when people aren't enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, do not be surprised if what happens is that an earthquake occurs in that town. Prophet Shu'aib went to the people of Midian. He was amongst the people of Midian. People who were affluent, their story mentioned within the Holy Quran, Surah 28 onwards. You find the people of Midian were affluent and started neglecting their duties. Some of the people of Midian were good, and others of the people of Midian were not so good. For example, the main sin the Quran mentions of the people of Midian was what? Was that they would short-weigh you in change. Short-weigh you in change means what? If this child can sit down, who's the father? Short-weigh you in change means what? Short-weigh you in change means that, for example, you've come to buy a certain amount of milk from me. In this whole tub of milk, half of it is milk and the other half is water. But you've put on the advertisement what? You've put the advertisement that this milk, there is 1 whole liter which is full of milk and no water. What happens here is that you short-weigh me in change, meaning that you scam me in the sale. You tell me the whole tub is milk when you know half of it is water. The people of Midian would short-weigh people in change. Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam would come up to them, he'd say, listen, this which you are acting is not to be respected. This which you are acting goes against the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On top of that, he would ask them to leave the worship of idols and come to worship Allah. yet none of them, yet the majority of them would not listen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala oversees them with a natural occurrence. Prophet Shu'aib asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, Ya Allah, there's an issue I need to ask you about. He said, what is it? He said, the people of Madian were 100,000. He said to him, yes. He said, you caused them all to die. He said, yes. He said, 60,000 of them were good and 40,000 were bad. He said, yes. He said, so why did you cause them all to die? He said, they were good amongst them. Why did you cause them to die? He said, because the good never spoke out against the bad. Sometimes when you're within a society where the good don't speak out against the bad, then do not be surprised if this natural occurrence may emerge within your own society. You find many Muslims today living in lands where they could see wrong, but tell them speak out. He says, listen, I don't want to speak out. I'm happy where I am. I'm living in my life. I'm not interfering in anyone else's. Yes, but you tell him there's oppression, there's injustice in this land. No, there is no need for me to speak out. When the people of Shu'aib in the Quran were seized with the natural occurrence, the reason they were seized wasn't the motion of tectonic plates. The majority of the time, if an earthquake occurs, it's the motion of tectonic plates, no doubt. But there are times when an earthquake occurs. Why? Because the human is living in an area where, although they think they are good, when they see evil, they don't speak out against the evil at all. Likewise, you find Prophet Salih with the people of Thamud. When the people of Thamud were punished, why were they punished? There was only one person in the whole of Thamud who killed the camel of Salih. A person by the name of Qaddar, upon the request of a lady by the name of Qutam, killed the camel of Salih. One person, yet Ya Allah, you punish all of them? There's only one of them who's come and cut the feet. Let's say there were two who came and cut the feet. Yet Ya Allah, you punish all? Yes, because the good did not speak out against the bad. Instead, they just watched what was happening without any of them saying a single word about the occurrence and its legitimacy. And that's why, what do we find? We find an interesting hadith which discusses this very area. That if you are living in the midst of a society where the good are not speaking out against the bad, then do not be surprised if there is a natural occurrence which occurs to remind you of your position. I remember reading Anas ibn Malik narrating a hadith where he asked Aisha, the wife of Rasulullah. Anas ibn Malik says, I asked Aisha, the wife of Rasulullah, when she was sitting with some people, why is it that earthquakes occur? It's a narration from the books of our brothers, but there are similar connotations within our works. Why do earthquakes occur? She didn't answer him. He asked again, why do earthquakes occur? She didn't answer until the third time she said, the reason I'm not answering you is that it may bring you in a state of grief in your heart and may make you fear the day of judgment. He said, what is it? She said, when earthquakes occur, remember, this is a second notion. The first prime notion is science. The second notion is possibility of theological occurrences. She says, when an earthquake occurs, the reason could be because women are dressing up for men other than their husbands, or are putting makeup for men other than their husbands, or because people are indulging in the drinking of alcohol and the playing of musical instruments and the action of adultery. Notice very importantly that when McCride comes and says that the Muslims say earthquakes occur because of a woman showing too much of her body, I reply by saying, no, on the first level an earthquake occurs, motion of tectonic plates. That's the first level. Do not go down the argument simply of theology. There are natural occurrences which occur within our earth. But there is a possibility within tradition that when mankind begins to perform certain actions, where they are blatantly acting in disobedience to Allah, then do not ask questions when an occurrence comes into your area. Which actions? Clearly the first of them is adultery and promiscuity. Someone says, what's wrong with adultery? If I want to commit adultery, who are you to tell me not to? You see, it's not about what's wrong with adultery. It's about the question, what's right with adultery? As in, when you look at adultery, what do you end up with? A child who doesn't even know who their father is, asking their mother, mother, where's dad? Dad was in my life for a short period of time, but I don't know where he is now. That child has a psychological dysfunction as they grow up. They come out of school seeing every child with their dad, but with them they don't know who their dad is. Don't you think psychologically this creates a hole, a vacuum in that child's life? As in, how many of you, notice Imam Zainul Abidin in رسالة الحقوق, وأما حق أبيك فتعلم أنه أصلك وأنك فرعه وأنك لولاه لم تكن فمهما رأيت في نفسك مما يعجبك فاعلم أن أباك أصل النعمة. Imam Zainul Abidin says, know that the right of your father is that you know he's your root and you are his branch, and without him you'd never be. So whenever you see anything inside you that impresses you, know that your father is the root of that blessing. A human needs a connection with a father. A father figure is something we all need in our life. Yet what do you find? Adultery produces children who have a hole in their lives, who do not know who their fathers are. A stigma which remains with them. That's number one. You find number two, you look at some of these American television shows, or even in our country within the UK, you find a lady coming out. I am pregnant. Who's the husband? One comes out, then a second, like a conveyor belt in a supermarket. Everybody comes out. One husband after another. Is it his DNA test? No, it's not him. Not him, not him. La ilaha illallah. As in, how much more do you want to make a mockery of what God has given you? When we come and say adultery is an act which affects society, we don't need to relate it to God alone. Universally, it's acknowledged that it may leave a gaping hole. That's number one. Number two, the playing of musical industries and the rise of the music industry. Many of our youth ask us, what's wrong with music? As in the person, his lyrics are nice. I don't deny that there are musicians whose lyrics are unbelievable, not just nice. But watch the video of the production of that particular tune. You think when there is a channel like MTV, why is it that they concentrate on the video as much as the lyrics? If it's the lyrics alone, you'd think it's a very normal, good industry. Go watch the video which made those lyrics and ask yourself, is that the type of morality you want to spread in the world? Further than that, within that same industry, there are some musicians, they raise them to the top. Don't think they raise them to the top because their music is only good. It's because the music will give you a message which they want to make sure continues to spread. You think it's ironic that Hendrix dies young and Marley dies young and Jackson gets put involved in a case with children? You think that's ironic? And then on the other hand, you find other musicians who rise and rise and rise. Madonna as a musician stays at the top of her industry with no one stopping her. And every single time people say, no, it's a very normal industry. There is nothing wrong with the industry. You know why people like that stay at the top? When there is one eye behind her jacket, and when she talks of the sun god covering her, and she comes down from a pyramid in 13 steps, you think that there isn't a hidden message in what she's trying to spread? There is a satanic message of a particular sect who themselves pride themselves on black satanic magic, and they want to bring it within the music industry. The musician whose music is good, suddenly we hear, oh, drug overdose. Drug overdose? Is that what happened to them? So when their music is good, we hear of a drug overdose. But the ones who are even higher never have any drug overdoses? The point is, when we are pointing to that act, we are pointing to the fact that there are certain lyrics which are dangerous. Certain lyrics, if they are spread, they can affect the mindset and the subconscious of the human being. Therefore, you find adultery, the playing of musical instruments. Number three, the spread of alcohol. Why do I need to bring Islam into the issue of the spread of alcohol? Why bring Islam? You as a human being, did you not hear of a story of a child who crosses a road and gets hit by a drunk driver? Doesn't that build any conscience within you that that drink has more disadvantages than it has advantages? As in when the Quran came and said alcohol is haram, it mentioned a lovely line. Its disadvantages outweigh its advantages. Notice, Allah didn't need to say prohibition straight away. Allah said, the disadvantages of alcohol outweigh its advantages. You may come to me with 5 advantages of alcohol, but I can show you 10 disadvantages of alcohol. When I see disadvantages, I see children being raped, I see a drunk driver killing a child crossing a road, you see others who get molested because of alcohol, fights which break up downtown, they break out in the downtown because of alcohol. Is this good for the society or is it bad for the society? Its disadvantages outweigh its advantages. Therefore, what do you find? When Aisha mentions this line, she mentions on behalf of Rasulullah that when musical instruments increase, when alcohol is on the rise, when adultery is on the rise, do not be surprised if a natural occurrence happens. Do not be surprised means what? Means that the first reason for a natural occurrence is the motion of tectonic plates in earthquakes. But the second reason is what? Is that sometimes the hands of mankind is what causes this oppressive movement. And that's why, what do you find? You find that, notice how within the jurisprudence of Al Muhammad, you notice that they tell us, whenever you see this natural occurrence occur, is there a salah we have to pray or no? What's the salah called? Salat al-ayat. Salat al-ayat, for what reason? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, come and pray this salah. As in, He's already told us to pray 5 times a day. Because there is a need at times for the human being to, number one, thank Allah for protecting them from any happening. Number two, there is a need for the human being to also go back in prostration to their Lord and remember where they come from and remember that they have limitations, whereas Allah is unlimited. That Salat al-Ayat is where you recognize that you don't have any control over the heavens and the earth. And that's why that volcano was a shake to the atheist like no other shake. Do you know why? Show me any atheist on this world who tells me science can show us everything. I tell them, show me the most scientifically done, the best of private jets. Show me if it could fly through that Icelandic ash. In a moment, the atheist who sits in a world saying, science, 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 your science didn't help me when I was stranded in Syria. Coming back from the land of Iraq, I was stranded in Syria. From Syria, I went to Istanbul. From Istanbul, I went to Vienna. From Istanbul to Athens, Athens to Vienna. Vienna, France, France to Dover, Dover to London. I looked around at the scientific world and I said, can't you look after the ash? But when your Lord plans, then science is only a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Notice that Allah in the Quran says to mankind, we give you an example. What is it? That those who you call on besides God, tell them to create a fly. No, tell them to catch the object which a fly has taken from them. They won't be able to do that as well. I come and I ask the person, just create a small fly for me. They'll say a fly is difficult to create. I say, okay, forget creating a fly. I want, when a fly steals something from you, like a breadcrumb, I want you to go and get it back off the fly. You, the human, claim you're so powerful that science will make you capture everything. You hit a fly and you can't catch it, and it's flown away. Do you know why Allah said, no, don't create a fly, catch that which it takes from you? Because a fly has enzymes which break up food outside its body, not inside. So if it takes crumb away from you, it's already broken it up outside without you being able to take it away from it. If a fly could humble you that much, oh human being, then why is it that you go around arrogantly saying there is no Lord who exists within you? Notice that when a volcano erupts, it's reminding a world of atheists that calm down. One disruption to Heathrow and you're panicking. Imagine a day when we make you كالفراش المبثوث. Like moths scattered around, you don't even know what's hit you. If the earthquake of this world affects you, then what happens with the earthquake of the hereafter? And that's why you notice the verse we quoted at the beginning of the lecture, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا. You notice that Rasulullah would use this surah to explain to mankind that the whole of the meaning of your life is within the surah. There was a companion who came to Rasulullah. He said to him, Ya Rasulullah, teach me of the Quran. Rasulullah told one of the companions, teach him of the Quran. That companion taught him from Surah Al-Zilzal until he reached فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. As soon as that companion heard that, he said, that's enough. That's the Quran? He said, yes. He said, that's it. Now I've understood. I've left. I'm going. Companion went to Rasulullah. I said, Ya Rasulullah, I thought you told me he wants to learn from the Quran. I just recited to him a few verses. He said, which verses? He says, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَى. He said, that's it. The man is now aware of the teachings of the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because truly when it comes down to it, if this earthquake is one that scares you, how about an earthquake when the earth will reveal everything that you did while you are on it? Where you stood within it, who you spoke out against in truth and who you spoke out against in falsehood, who you backbit and who you gossiped again. The earth will reveal everything. Those who performed an atom's weight of good will be rewarded, and they'll see it. Those who performed an atom's weight of bad will be punished, and they will see it. And that's why you notice even within the hadith, one of the attributes of Al-Muhammad, within the school of Ahl al-Bayt, was narrated that one day an earthquake occurred in the land of Medina. Fatima al-Zahra herself narrates this hadith. She says an earthquake occurred in the land of Medina. Many people flocked to Abu al-Hasan, to Amir al-Mu'mineen, saying to him, what should we do? He had taken them to the outskirts of Medina. When he had taken them, he looked at a couple of those companions who were in fear. And he looked at them and he said to them, if you are in fear of this earthquake, then how about the earthquake of the Day of Judgment? Then he placed his hand on the ground and the earthquake stopped. They said to him, we are surprised. He said, are you surprised? Do you not know that the earth will speak to me on the Day of Judgment? That Ali ibn Abi Talib, amongst his merits, is that the earth will honor him on the Day of Judgment as a man who stood alongside his wife with principles. But without a shadow of doubt, there were times when this very earth was ready to swallow its inhabitants. Because when the human being is oppressive to another human being, the earth does not like such people walking on it. Such people are actually a virus to the earth when they walk on it, when they oppress others. Notice in the history of Al-Muhammad, there have been moments where the earth was ready to swallow the inhabitants. The first of them was when Salman said, when Fatima, I saw her coming out, Fatima al-Zahra, I saw her coming out of her house when Ali ibn Abi Talib had been taken away by the ruling authority who had taken his leadership and had attacked the door. He said, when I saw her coming out and the anger that she had within her, he said, I swear I thought the land of Medina would swallow its inhabitants. Because when Fatima is angry, her anger is the anger of Rasulullah. And the anger of Rasulullah is the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fatimatun bad'atun minni. Man adaha, faqad adani. Fatima is a part of me. Whoever angers her, angers me. And whoever angers me, angers Allah. That was one occasion when the earth was ready to swallow its inhabitants. A second was in the land of Sham. When Sahal ibn Sa'ad al-Sa'adi narrates, on the 1st of Safar in the land of Sham, I was walking through the land of Sham and I saw people celebrating. I thought it was a day of Eid. I came to someone and I said to him that, oh man, is this a day of Eid? Is this why people are celebrating? He said to me, you must be a nomad. I replied, no, I'm not a nomad. I am Sahal ibn Sa'ad al-Sa'adi, of the companions of Rasulullah. He said to him, O Sal, do not be surprised if the earth swallows its inhabitants. He said to him, why? He said, because they are parading the head of the grandson of Rasulullah. They are allowing the head of the grandson of Rasulullah to be spread and to be sent around in spears. Sahal narrates, I looked around and I saw the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on a spear in front of me, and behind him I saw a man who I came towards. It was Ali ibn al-Hussein, Zayn al-Abidin, but I saw a chain covering his neck. When I came to him, I said to him, Oh Sahal, it is me, oh Zayn al-Abidin, it is me, Sahal ibn Sa'ad al-Sa'adi. I was a companion of your great-grandfather Rasulullah. He said said to him, Sahel, would you mind going out and buying me a piece of cloth? Sahel wondered, why does Zayn al-Abidin want a piece of cloth? What could be the reason? He went and bought a piece of cloth. He came back. Imam Zayn al-Abidin took the cloth and he placed it between the chain and between his neck. Why? Because the chain had been cutting through the neck of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. That's why Imam al-Baqir narrates, when I washed the body of my father, I noticed two marks on his body, one on his back and one on his neck. The one on his back was the amount of food he'd carry in the middle of the night. There would be bruising on his back, but he said the chain had cut through his neck, that chain had cut through and remained with him since Karbala. Arguably it was difficult for Al-Muhammad, and no more difficult for them when Sayyidah Zainab and the ladies of Al-Muhammad had to enter the court of Yazid. The narration states that when they entered the court of Yazid, their chains had connected all of them in the court of Yazid. Yazid had a wife by the name of Hind. This Hind had been a servant in the house of Sayyidah Zainab. Some say a student in the house when she was younger. She was forced to marry Yazid. A lady came towards her. She said to her, Hind, come towards the palace. The reply was, why? The lady said, because there are a group of rebels. Yazid wants you to come out and he wants you to see them. Hind is narrated to have come out. She came and sat on her throne. Sayyidah Zainab looked towards Kulthum. When she looked towards Kulthum, she said to Kulthum, do you recognize that lady? Kulthum looked at her and she said to her, no, I don't. Sayyidah Zainab replied that is Hind who used to serve us in our house. The narration states that when Hind was sitting on her throne, she looked at Sayyidah Zainab, but she didn't recognize Sayyidah Zainab because of the trials of the 10th of Muharram. When she looked at Sayyidah Zainab, she looked at her and she said, oh lady, may I ask you, which land are you from? Sayyidah Zainab replied that we are from the land of Medina. At this moment, Hind came down from her throne. She sat on the ground. Sayyidah Zainab looked at her. She said to her, why is it that you sit on the ground? She said, welcome to the people of the land of Medina. I used to know a family in Medina. Sayyidah Zainab began to ask her, which family did you know in Medina? She said, I used to serve the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib when I was in Medina. She said to her, may I ask you about some of the members of that house? She said to her, who do you want to ask about? She said, tell me about Abu Fadl al-Abbas. Where is he now? Naturally, she'd ask about Abu Fadl al-Abbas. Sayyidah Zainab turned around to her. She said, do you see the head on that spear? She said, yes. She said, there is Abu Fadl in front of you. She said to her, may I ask you, where is Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? She said to her, do you see that head on the spear? She said, yes. She said, that is the head of Abu Abdullah. She said to her, may I ask about Sayyidah Zainab, where is she? She said to her, which Zainab? She said, Zainab al-Hashimiyya. She said to her, I can't tell you about Zainab al-Hashimiyya, but I can tell you about Zainab al-Masbiyya. Zainab the prisoner, I am Zainab and this is my sister Kulthum. When Hind heard this, she ran in the court of Yazid. Her hijab was hanging off. Yazid said to her, how dare you enter my court, wear your hijab properly. She said to him, you tell me about hijab, how about the daughters of Rasulullah? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Raise your hands, brothers and sisters, raise your hands. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Muhammad and Al Muhammad, to allow us to be amongst the companions of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Allow us to be amongst those who follow their message. Allow us to be amongst those who receive the intercession of Muhammad and Al Muhammad, and particularly the intercession of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the originators of this majlis. Bless them with your mercy and allow them to continue to serve the message of Ahlul Bayt. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the Surah Al-Fatiha, but before it the loudest of your salawat.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين